Before the world gets your attention, decide where your attention belongs. Because if you lose the first battle of the day, you may spend the rest of it reacting to everyone else. Every morning gives you a hidden advantage. A few quiet moments before the demands of the world take control of your attention. What you do during those moments can influence your discipline, focus, emotional control, and even the way you handle problems later in the day. The goal isn't to create a perfect morning, it's to create a deliberate one. The way you spend the first hour of your day may be quietly deciding the direction of your entire life. Not because one morning can magically fix everything, but because every morning gives you a choice. Will you enter the day deliberately? Or will you allow the world to enter your mind before you have even decided who you want to be? Think about how easily it happens. You wake up, reach for your phone, check a message, see something frustrating, scroll through social media, compare your life with someone else's, read the news, and suddenly your mind is already reacting to things you cannot control. Before your feet even touch the floor, someone else's opinion has influenced your mood. Someone else's success has affected your confidence. Someone else's problem has entered your head, and the day has barely begun. Now imagine doing something completely different. You wake up and don't immediately surrender your attention. You give yourself a few quiet minutes. You remember what matters. You decide what kind of person you want to be today. You move your body. You think before you react. You begin with intention instead of distraction. Nothing outside you has changed, yet somehow the entire day feels different. That difference is not luck, it is control. The Stoics understood that life is constantly competing for your attention. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world filled with war, political pressure, betrayal, illness, responsibility, and uncertainty. Yet he repeatedly returned to the same basic idea: your mind belongs to you. Your circumstances may not. Other people may not. The future certainly does not. But the way you meet the day begins with a decision that is still yours. This is why winning the morning has very little to do with having a perfect routine. It is not about waking up at an impressive hour so you can brag about it. It is not about drinking a particular drink, taking a cold shower, or completing a complicated checklist before sunrise. Those things may help some people, but they are not the foundation. The foundation is much simpler. Don't begin your day by becoming a reaction to the world. Imagine two people waking up on the same Monday morning. One immediately grabs his phone. He sees an email from his boss questioning his work. His stomach tightens. He checks his bank account and worries about money. Then he opens social media and sees an old friend traveling somewhere beautiful. Suddenly he feels behind in life. Before breakfast, his mind has already experienced anger, insecurity, comparison, and fear. The second person wakes up and leaves the phone alone. He sits quietly for a moment and asks himself, what actually deserves my attention today? He knows he has responsibilities. He knows problems are waiting, but he refuses to let those problems choose his emotional state before he has even chosen it himself. And the difference between these two people isn't that one has an easier life. The difference is that one begins the day consciously. Epictetus taught a distinction that remains incredibly powerful. Some things are within our control, while others are not. Your morning is one of the best places to practice that distinction. You cannot control what message arrives. You cannot control whether someone criticizes you. You cannot control the traffic later. You cannot control whether a difficult conversation appears on your calendar. but you can control the first direction of your attention, and attention is more valuable than most people realize. Dumbed where attention goes, emotion often follows. Where emotion goes repeatedly, behavior follows. Where behavior goes consistently, your life begins to change. That means your morning is not just a collection of habits. It is a training ground for your mind. If you train yourself every morning to immediately seek stimulation, you become more dependent on stimulation. If you train yourself to constantly check for notifications, you become more uncomfortable with silence. If you train yourself to compare your life before you have even started living it, dissatisfaction becomes easier to access. But if you train yourself to pause, think, move, reflect, and choose your priorities, you strengthen a completely different part of yourself. You become harder to distract, you become harder to manipulate, you become less dependent on external validation. And slowly you become more capable of deciding how you want to live. There is another reason mornings matter so much. They reveal your relationship with discipline. Most people think discipline means forcing yourself to do difficult things, but real discipline often looks much quieter. It is the ability to keep a promise to yourself when nobody is watching. You tell yourself that you will wake up and spend 10 minutes thinking instead of scrolling. Then morning comes. Nobody is there to congratulate you. Nobody would know if you broke the promise. You could easily say, "I'll start tomorrow," but you don't. You get up. That small decision sends a message to your mind. My word means something. Then do that repeatedly and you begin to trust yourself. Self-trust is one of the most underrated forms of confidence. You don't build it by repeating positive statements in the mirror. You build it by watching yourself do what you said you would do. This is why a powerful morning can change more than your schedule. It can change your relationship with yourself. Consider someone who constantly says, "I need to get my life together." They make plans at night, promise themselves they will wake up early, exercise, read, work, and stop wasting time. But morning after morning, they hit snooze, scroll for an hour, and start the day feeling guilty. And eventually, the problem isn't simply the missed workout or wasted hour. The deeper problem becomes identity. Later, they begin to think, maybe I'm just not disciplined. That thought becomes dangerous because people tend to behave consistently with the identity they have accepted. Now, reverse the process. You don't need to transform your entire life tomorrow. Start with one promise. Wake up and spend the first 15 minutes without your phone. Drink some water. Sit quietly. Stretch. Write down what matters most today. Then do the first meaningful task before allowing the world to demand your attention. And it sounds small, it is small, but small actions repeated consistently become evidence. And evidence changes identity. One morning doesn't make you disciplined, but hundreds of mornings where you repeatedly choose discipline begin to create a person who trusts himself. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes practical rather than theoretical. The Stoics didn't teach people to escape life. They taught people to meet life with a stronger mind. Your morning is where that strength can be practiced before the day's pressure begins. Before you answer everyone else's questions, ask yourself your own. What deserves my energy today? What is within my control? What am I avoiding? What kind of person do I want to be when something goes wrong? What would make tonight feel like I actually lived today rather than simply survived it? These questions create something modern life constantly tries to remove from us: deliberate thought. And deliberate thought creates space between an event and your reaction. That space is powerful. Dumbed, maybe you receive a rude message at jolinga.m. If your morning began with chaos, your nervous system may already be overloaded. You are tired, distracted, rushed, and emotionally reactive. The message becomes the final trigger, and you respond immediately. But if your morning began with stillness and intention, you may still dislike the message. You may still feel anger, but you have more room to choose what happens next. You can read it twice. You can wait. Emdia, you can decide whether a response is even necessary. That is strength. Mandi, not the absence of emotion, but the ability to choose what you do with emotion. Bandya, this is why winning the morning does not mean making every morning productive. Some mornings you will be tired. Some mornings you will wake up worried. Some mornings life will interrupt your plans before you even begin. Damn, the goal is not perfection. The goal is direction. If you wake up late, don't spend the next hour attacking yourself. Start from where you are. If yesterday was terrible, don't assume today has to repeat it. If you fail to follow your routine for a week, don't turn one failure into an identity. Begin again. There is something deeply stoic about beginning again without unnecessary drama. Seneca wrote extensively about how easily we waste the limited time we have. The problem isn't always that life is too short. Often we give away pieces of it without noticing. A few minutes here, an hour there, another evening lost to mindless scrolling. Another morning spent consuming someone else's life instead of building your own. And then, one day we look back and wonder where the years went. Your morning is a daily reminder that time is moving whether you use it deliberately or not. And you don't need to become obsessed with productivity. In fact, that can become another form of distraction. You don't need to turn every sunrise into a performance. Benja, you simply need to stop treating your attention as something anyone can take. Your phone doesn't deserve the first word of your day. The news doesn't deserve the first emotion of your day. The other people's opinions don't deserve the first decision of your day. It can be 10. It can be 20. The exact number doesn't matter nearly as much as the principle behind it. You are teaching yourself that you can choose where your mind goes. No? And once you learn that in the morning, you begin carrying it into the rest of your life. You become more patient in conversations. You become less reactive to criticism. You stop checking your phone every few minutes. You become more focused on meaningful work. You become less impressed by temporary distractions. You start noticing how often you give away your peace for things that won't matter tomorrow. And eventually something remarkable happens. You stop asking, how can I control everything happening around me? You start asking, how can I meet whatever happens with control over myself? That is a much more powerful question. Because life will never become completely predictable. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Money will fluctuate. Relationships will change. Your body will age. Opportunities will disappear. Now, give yourself a moment before the world starts asking things from you. That moment can be 5 minutes. Unexpected problems will arrive. You don't win life by preventing all of these things. You win by becoming the kind of person who can meet them without losing himself. And that person is built in ordinary moments, often before anyone else is awake. There is something almost symbolic about the early morning. The world is quiet. The notifications haven't started. The demands haven't accumulated for a brief moment. The day belongs to you. What you do with that moment matters. You can fill it with noise, or you can use it to remember who you are. You can wake up and immediately ask what everyone else is doing. Benjes, or you can ask what you are doing with your life, you can consume, or you can create. MB8 you can react, or you can choose, you can continue repeating yesterday. PDS, or you can make one small decision that belongs to the person you want to become. And perhaps that is what it really means to win the morning. It isn't about defeating the clock. It isn't about becoming a productivity machine. It is about winning the first battle for your attention. Bender, because if you can control the beginning of your day, you become more capable of controlling the direction of your day. And if you repeatedly control the direction of your days, eventually you begin changing the direction of your life. Tambidius, so tomorrow morning, don't demand perfection from yourself. Just make one decision before the world makes one for you. Put the phone down, take a breath, get out of bed, remember what matters. Choose your priority. And do the difficult thing before the easy distraction. Go, and when the day eventually becomes complicated, carry that morning discipline with you. Bleen, because the person you become is not created by one dramatic decision. It is created by the quiet decisions you repeat when nobody is watching. B. If this message gave you something to think about, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Daily Stoic Dose. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep building the kind of mind that doesn't need perfect circumstances to live well. Angda, tomorrow morning, the world will still be waiting for your attention. Bane, but before you give it away, give yourself a moment, stand up, breathe, choose. And remember, you don't need to control the entire day. You only need to control how you begin it. Win the morning, and you may discover that the life you've been waiting to change has been waiting for you to change the way you start each day.